James Brister. Thanks for having a chat with me, buddy.
You're very welcome. I'm staying silent and I'm waiting for your introduction, so you might have to just cue me, Joe. Go, yes, because I'm
That's
very
it, mate. That's it.
I'm very simple.
That's as introductory as it has to be.
I love it. I love it.
Super excited to chat to you.
Likewise.
Like I say, you were very much in the list of people, the top list of people to talk to for this little series. So yeah. So what I think we'll do is just have a very, very quick skim over our sort of backgrounds. I mean, I think you were literally the first person I met when I came down to the ICMP, as is the case for many students, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I first started working at ICMP, which is a music university for anyone listening.
It is.
In 2005, and I was in the admissions team. So I came out of university having done mineral engineering. What the I don't even know what that is anymore. But I did it for some strange reason, mostly because it was in Leeds and I love Leeds, wanted to study there. But then after that, it was during my time there, I just loved music and being around it. I played a really average guitar. The guitar was great. I was severely average, woefully average, Joe. But I loved the kind of other side of it. I kind of managed a little band. I use that term loosely at university, and it was mostly just to start the ball rolling and learning about the business. Long story short, I didn't have any real kind of experience on my CV. Got a sales job, brilliant. Then jumped to ICMP in the admissions department, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing, because you are fundamentally guiding people to make a decision that's best for them as to how to start their development within their, let's be honest, passion. Because it's very few people go, I know, I'll go and study music because I want to make a lot of money. That is probably, I've come across that once, and they failed. But it's kind of never driven by money. Yeah, really. Not the kind of creative side of it. If you want to be an artist, writer, producer, that kind of thing. Sure. So that was a privilege, and then I developed my role there into industry liaison, which fundamentally is, as the name suggests, chatting with the industry, trying to build connections and opportunities for the students. And on the flip side of that, starting to really help. I hope. I'd like to think so. I've got testimony, Joe, so I know I do help. Of developing some of. Yeah. I'm on a promise of developing some of the not developing students. So, I mean, they're labelled students, but they don't, they self-identify as artists or writers or both, or producers or musicians, or, whatever their kind of chosen path is. And I've done that many years and really enjoyed it.
It answers a question that was to follow, really, which was how you kind of got started. And I didn't know, we've never really talked about your career or your introduction prior to me knowing you at the Institute of Contemporary Music Performance. I think everyone came from a musical background, at least 99% of people. So no one, I think it would be very strange for people to decide whether when they're in sixth form and they're doing their A levels that, well, I've never picked up a guitar in my life, but I'll go to music college.
Absolutely right, mate.
So that's it. You've already got that. You've already got that kind of the passion. You've got the motivation, and you've got the experience, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
yeah.
No, you're right. Absolutely, it's a hell of a driver. When it's really unusual that if you're going to pursue music in any format, as I said, artist, writer, producer, whatever, blah blah blah, list it as long as you list it. The driver is often from a place of identity. Like if you're learning, and if your desire is to be a top guitarist, you are a guitarist. You know what I mean? That's your identifier. If you are writing songs and want to perform them, then you are an artist. And it kind of knits quite wonderfully into a comfortable jumper. That thing of what's if your identifier is driving you, it tends to be an incredibly powerful force. Whereas and it's a pushing force. Whereas I think sometimes the pursuit of financial gain can be quite a pull. It's quite Yeah, I don't know if I described that particularly well, but I think it's a real emotional connection to your pursuit. If your career pursuit is an identifier, such as artist, writer, producer, muso, it really is, and
Absolutely.
that's what I've observed over the ridiculous number of years it feels I've been doing this.
Yeah, and the many, many, many people you've met.
We tallied up. I'll go into this. I tallied it up the other day. As well as I could possibly do so without having um, verified data. But I reckon I've probably spoken with around about 1,800 individuals over the years
Wow.
who have wanted to pursue some form of musical career.
Right.
That's on music business side as well. And God knows how many that's individuals, and God knows how many actual meetings. Because obviously, I've met with some of those people several times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of meetings and lots of experience, and getting asked questions that I'm like, Jesus, I don't know the answer to that. I will go
Right.
and find out. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
beauty. It keeps you. I think it does anyway. I think it kind of keeps you fresh.
Yeah. Absolutely. Moving on to the other things
Yeah.
that you've gone on to pursue since I've known you. Yeah, a little bit of background about Amour music. So that was I guess the first thing that I saw you doing additionally to the ICMP.
Yeah.
If I was
Yeah.
saying
No,
that.
absolutely. No, that's
That
good segue, man.
yeah. So back in 2012,
Yeah,
co-founded with Sean McDermott,
that's right.
who we both know, and you've described it as a management service for artists, songwriters, and producers. Roster has achieved millions of streaming plays, which in itself is, alone is amazing. Performed arenas and continue to release records around the world. So tick, 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 tick. So the main thing I want to know actually is if you've always had sort of entrepreneurial aspirations in setting up a business. So like from when you were younger, or whether they sort of developed and it was sort of a natural progression after you'd already kind of began working at the institute and sort of started taking on leadership roles and things like this.
Yeah, very good question, mate. No, I've often thought about this. The route into management for me was very much an obvious progression from what I was doing and still am at ICMP.
Mm-hmm.
Again, back to that, like it was just a constant pursuit of knowledge and learning what's going on in the industry, which is such a kind of grandiose term. The industry, it was actually more, I guess micro than that. In the individuals, like I was so into what they were pursuing, what their interests were musically, how they were experimenting, exploring their own sound, what was unique to them, and all those sorts of things. And actually, with artists, it's a huge part of it. I don't want to say what's your kind of like what's unique about you. That's such a cliche, but it is. There's some exploration to do as an artist as to what your story is.
Absolutely.
What's your story? What's your vision? What have you got to say? How do you want to say it? How are you going to present it? How are we going to communicate it? All these sorts of things. And for many, many conversations and, you know, um, pursuits of my own into learning about this sort of stuff, it kind of, myself and Sean, who've known each other through ICMP previously, he used to work there, got on really well and complement each other very well, which we'll probably come on to. But yeah, we can't. I don't say fell into it. It was more conscious than that. It was like, oh look, we're managing something. But we found someone. We found someone who was, doing remarkably well on their own. To be honest with you, Joe, as an independent,
Mm-hmm.
and we thought we could add value to their operation. And at the time, we did. And my God, we made loads of mistakes. But I think you only make mistakes if you're willing to try stuff out, new things out, push a bit of a boundary in an envelope, and bloody learn from it. I mean, that was such a key thing. And with this artist, I hasten to add, nothing we kind of, it was never prescriptive. I don't think management works that way. You need to
Yeah.
do this, you must do that. It doesn't work. The artist has to buy in as a team to what the kind of the narrative is, or the strategy is, or the plan is. And as I said, like, we're trying loads of different stuff and exploring these different revenue streams and different avenues of growth. Some fell flat on their face. I had some big knockbacks from the industry. That was a hell of a lesson. But I think it's become quite easy to claim you're an entrepreneur. But when you really kind of delve into what an entrepreneur is and their characteristics, they're incredibly creative, have a very low risk. They're very low risk averse quotient, if you will. So they'll jump in and with both feet and go for it. And that wasn't really me. I think what I am is a creative business person as opposed to an entrepreneur. Now, my brother in arms, Sean, is definitely, he won't mind me saying this, is definitely risk averse. Right. And that's important because I think in business, practicality is what delivers on the vision. Like, if you don't know what step to take that leads to the next step, you cannot grow, you cannot realize your vision, you cannot grow a business. So I guess I'm more entrepreneurial out of the two of us, but I'm not I don't jump in with 2 feet. I still apply a certain element of analysis before thinking that's too much of a risk and I can't see the return on the investment. So I've always found that interesting because when you really delve into an entrepreneur, my word, they're quite scary people in terms of if you analyze how sometimes, I don't want to say they're detached, but they have a real distance from the realities of mortgages and not family and emotionally, but kind of like all the potential responsibilities that might stop someone pursuing something that was incredibly high risk, but they don't give a shit and they kind of go for it.
Yeah,
this is a sweeping statement, I hasten to add. Any entrepreneurs listening and thinking that's not me, I look after the family and I've got whatever. But it's generally that is an entrepreneur. And I also think it's quite it's romanticized quite a lot being an entrepreneur. And actually being a creative business person is just as viable. It's like that can actually grow some cracking little businesses, and they can support themselves and other people through through employees and things of that nature. So I think creativity is always important, but yeah, I mean, you also do find, let's be honest, entrepreneurs do tend to get the big ticket items.
Yes.
Like a Facebook or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, some huge thing that it becomes a Goliath. I mean, that they not sweep it again. They're often born from an entrepreneur who would have failed a million times before. This is the other thing, failure. What is failure? It's just a lesson. That's what it needs to be.
Yep.
You must not be afraid to fail. And it's there's such strong negative connotations with the word failure. But no, I think I admire entrepreneurs, but they also terrify me. I'm also very aware of self-narrative. So I've done I'm an NLP practitioner, which is like anyone looks it up. Hopefully it's not too kind of airy fairy. Do I use that word? Probably not. Sorry if I have offended.
No. But
it's maybe I think it's born in more sense orientated and understandable parameters. And it's literally, it's neuro-linguistic programming. It's like how you talk to yourself and others, like the language you use.
Yep.
So take entrepreneur for a moment, and that entrepreneur has been inflated to some magical being, and can be quite imposing, can be quite intimidating, and it can be quite restrictive to someone.
Yeah.
It's not to belittle your language, but I really enjoy the fact that I know I'm creative in a different output, and I do love owning and running businesses. I've got I help my wife as an interior designer. We kind of co-manage her business. Obviously, I work with Sean, and we've got another thing that I'm sure we'll come on to, Joe. And I love that. But I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not. I love having I still work full-time at ICMP, and I love that. I love it because I love the experience I have as a member of staff there, engaging with the wonderful genuinely students and alumni there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You like, when you analyse what I do, it's like, oh my God, that's like a pretty bloody good role.
Yeah.
I love doing it. And,
Yeah.
you know, an entrepreneur wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur would treat that as a way to fund their side hustle. And as soon as they can move, they'll be jumping 2 feet into the side hustle and growing and hopefully being successful. But again, it's a hell of a thing, right? That's a big risk to take.
Absolutely. I think for someone that is so diverse by nature, generally, I think entrepreneurs again are quite diverse by nature. They're also very one-track minded. You know, if I ever sit down and I've got my planner that I'll plan my days to, and sit down, and as soon as I open it, I'm like, I have a feeling of, right, today I'm going to have an entrepreneur's mindset, and everything is sort of geared to that one goal. But I've got all these other little things that I need to do to get there, and it sometimes it feels a little uncompromising. And actually, in recent months, I've begun to sort of see other opportunities, partially because of the environment we're in at the minute. You know, we have with the virus, we have to think outside the box a little bit, and you know, it's okay to have multiple things. It's okay to have some support, especially in the music industry, where, you know, we are so uncompromising as musicians. I certainly was. I think everybody I know has been uncompromising as a musician at some point, and until it gets to the point where you perhaps have to think a little bit further down the line in terms of career and earning money and supporting family and things like that. And it's absolutely okay to have other things going on and to not be so one-track minded.
Man.
On to the second part, what portion of your roster is attributed to your personal networks? And has there also been an element of word of mouth, which is obviously a common thing in the industry, and, you know, sales funneling and things like this, actually marketing?
I think with the more music, I mean, it's all personal network. I mean, two of our artists that we currently manage are ex-ICMP. So, I mean, you know, we weren't allowed to manage them whilst they were students, because that's unfair, Joe. But when they leave, you're obviously, you know, they're into the wide world, and we look after them. But I think it's an interest with management, and this is I'm sure you speak to another manager, I'm sure they'll have different parameters, but and actually even more so now, we only ever want to work with an artist if we absolutely love them and their music, which I know sounds pretty obvious, but do you know what? No, there's managers out there who would take a more analytical approach. There's nothing right or wrong with this, by the way, but a more analytical approach. And if you know, if maybe someone who's unmanaged and has got a little bit of a jump in numbers on socials or Spotify or whatever, or lots of PR buzzing around them, they might kind of jump onto that. And don't get me wrong, some amazing relationships in management have started that way, and maybe it still rings true that they love them and the music, but you know, we've never done that. But I don't think I could work that way. I think, you know, knowing how involved management is on a personal level, an emotional level, it can be incredibly taxing. And I don't want to put a negative spin, but it can be, because you often have to be counsellor, strategist, admin, spokesperson, salesperson, you name it, you are it. That's the thing. Researcher, it's a lot involved, and you know, you have fundamentally got the career of somebody with them in your collective hands. So it's quite a big. I find it quite a big personal and emotional responsibility. So it makes it even more important that the people we work with have come from sources that we trust, either being ourselves, and we have had people from lawyers been put forward. No one really worked out, but that's only it's for all those reasons I said. You know, it's a subjective thing. I mean, expanding on that, obviously, Joe, you know, like that to deliver. I don't say to deliver anything, but to deliver a certain level of service for and with your artist, then I mean, then it is all about your professional relationships. It really is, and you know, even to the extent the professional relationships that you don't have, but you know how to cultivate. I think that's as valuable as, you know, you might be the most networked person in the world, but you know, what if you don't know in that network the right person?
Yeah.
What if you haven't got a relationship with them?
Yeah.
You need to know how to get to them and how to form a genuine connection. That's another thing. Like, network can be a dry word, right? I mean, it can be quite stale and cold. And actually, it's professional relationships. That's the key. It's being able to say, you know, hello, mate. Hello, John. Hello, Sue. Great to catch up again. Sign my artist. No, not really. But anything like, do you know what I mean? Anything around that. It has to have some parameter of personal connection to it. And actually, I think one of the most important things of the whole professional networking thing, professional relationships, is knowing what you bring to the table. Like, we're very good at. I kind of made a point because I just said, who do you need to reach? But we are very good at identifying, you know, oh, I need this person, that person, or this function, that function. What can I get from them? It's quite that's what I think networking sometimes can kind of sway the thinking style towards. But actually, I think one of the most valuable things to do is self-reflection. Like, what do you bring to the table apart from a great artist? Like, are you the best advice I ever had was from someone very high up who shall remain nameless. Get it out, James. Remain nameless. And they're very articulate, incredibly eloquent, and their major piece of advice was, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds like, all right, yeah, that's deep, isn't it, Joe? But it was like, don't be a dick. You can't get away nowadays, especially.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you need to be strong in communication. You need to be strong in negotiation, but you know, it's no point being a bull in negotiation because you just put the other person off.
Exactly. And we, you know, we're not on Wall Street, and you know, we're an industry full of creatives who I think are quite gentle at heart in a way. And I think you've got to, you know, and you've got to, yeah, you have to absolutely just not be a dick.
Yeah, totally.
And
you'll find, no, it is, mate. It's solid. And actually, as you know, I'm God, it's scary to think I'm becoming an older person in the industry at 41 years old. But my job keeps you young at heart, Joe, and young of mind, I'd like to say. But my point being is that even in my relative short 15 years, like, I'm seeing people that I was connecting with early on rising to positions of, you know, quite big influence, and they have kind of developed and grown with this nature of a bit more. It's a collaborative type sentiment. It's like, you know, there is a consideration of both parties, what's the best for both, so that everybody succeeds. Generally, there's always a anomaly to this, of course, rather than let me screw that person over to try to get as much as I possibly can, and you know, two fingers up to them.
Yeah, it just doesn't work like that anymore.
No, it's not. I mean, some people do, as you know, but like you find them out quickly, and the other thing in this industry is it's tiny, relatively speaking, tiny. So
yeah.
The moment you are a dick, 96% of people know about it.
You know what? It's wild. Having traveled a little bit now and actually sort of, you know, try and sort of make connections along the way, you realize just how tiny it really is, you know, from here to the States, or, you know, I'm sure as far as places in Asia.
Yeah, well, especially with the rise of, like, you know, K-pop and the Southeast Asian styles, if you will.
So minuscule. So yeah, it's very inadvertently ended up blacklisted. And moving forward to the other side, the other portion of your business. So you went on to set up the artist guides.
Yeah.
And again, described as being an established. I like that. I like what you've mentioned on the website here. Established in a response to the overwhelming number of artists requesting help and advice with their development and self-management. And that's great. So within this, we spoke a little bit before, you've done podcasts. Obviously, you're providing forms of feedback, articles, articles dedicated to advice. Just, super easy access, things like this, and coaching, and then workshops as well, which I'm super interested to hear about. So yeah, what made you, my question is, what made you add this to Amour? What made you add this to your full-time position at the ICMP? And why did you add another thing?
Another thing, yeah. Wow. Twofold, really. One, okay, from a business perspective, we were seeing, and we're only a small little management company. I don't profess to be anything other than like a small independent management company who hopefully will grow with, over time, a little bit more time, stuff like that. We do have ambition, of course, not so much cutthroat, but it's ambition. And we receive, I don't know, conservatively, probably 30 to 50 emails a week from prospective artists or bands. And it might be quite telling that we have never moved the conversation forward as far as management is concerned with any of them. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to them at all, but what it indicated is the common threads of them not being ready, not having enough awareness of how to, contact management, how to strategize and plan for a release, how to have a sonic identity, how to focus on your music first of all these things, like all of them were kind of like just reinforcing this notion that there's a service that could be created in which to offer some guidance and some support, and that guidance and support comes from the free podcast and the free guides on the artistguides.net website. Little plug there, Joe. Whoops. And also, if an artist chooses to engage in coaching, then yes, it's a cost. What I've always found interesting, artists will almost not bat an eyelid to go for vocal lessons or guitar lessons or something of this nature and pay 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 quid, whatever, for an hour session. And in the world of the massive swell of independent artists and the fact that I could throw a stat, I won't, but many, many, many of them have to start without any sort of hint of a team around them, anything at all, doing all on their own. I've got a pretty good idea of the things to do in order to at least become ready within your own definition of ready, of whatever music, quality you're making, whatever style you're making, whatever. Of the things to approach a state of readiness, and then if you choose to, which you should choose to, start releasing music in a strategic and planned way, not willy-nilly, not randomly, but with some sort of foundation, some basis of idea of what to do. So we thought, we'll put that in as coaching. Coaching is a service. You do it for an hour. We'll analyze your music and give you feedback, and if you've got music that's ready, then we can talk about really all these sorts of things, which I thought made kind of, myself and Sean both thought, it makes kind of sense, doesn't it? But in line with that, in our research and doing what I do at ICMP, there is no one. Well, I might be wrong, so please correct me in any sort of emails or tweets. I don't know how this is going out. Sorry, Joe. On the comments below if it's YouTube. No. A one-stop shop in terms of a website, a web page, or anything where this information is free to access. Like what to do, who to sign up to in your rights type thing, PRS, PPLs, Joe, all those sorts of things. Most importantly, how to develop your music. What does readiness in your music sound like? A bit of marketing, and ultimately, how do you actually release a single with any sort of plan around it? So we did it. We did a podcast, of us waffling on. ICMP, the tutors at ICMP use it as just simply as a resource. It's not designed as a well, for ICMP, it's not designed as a funnel. This is just value. We wanted to give value first. And again, mate, this isn't reinventing the wheel, as you know. We put value out there. If people recognise the value and want to pursue it further, then we have coaching and we have workshops. And the workshops, honestly, between you and I, they took a pause because we were going to do them in person.
Yeah.
For anyone listening to this or watching this in the future, COVID-19 was a thing right now. And from 2019, 2020, sorry. What year is it? Yeah. And then, so we are likely to be putting some webinar-based workshops together. And again, we might throw them out just as a free resource as we've done after we've done a few, or not. But it seems to be working. We've got a healthy number of clients that come through us. They might do one session with us. Though some have done 6 or 7 ish. And there's no there's no murkiness here. Like we're not pretending to manage anyone. It's not paid for management, which I don't agree with. It's just a service. You can dip in and dip out as much or as little as you want.
Yeah.
And if you get value from it, I hope you would. God, great. And I hope we help. I really do. And if someone doesn't, we're coming from an honest place. That's all I need to really worry myself about. It's been born because of all the information we've kind of all the data we've had about how we know artists aren't ready.
You've got the resources there. You've got the free content and the accessible content for people to access and for people to judge for themselves whether they're ready. And then if they are, then you can interact with them and then help them pursue it further until perhaps the point where they are ready, or they need to make sort of adjustments themselves. And
I think if everyone can pursue it in an honest, authentic manner and do well, brilliant, because it's a symbiotic thing.
Yeah.
Like we do bring value, so you should expect, and this is what there should be an expectation that you pay for the value, you compensate fairly for the value that's brought from the expertise and experience. The issue that this industry's always had, and that was a block for us doing this earlier, if I'm honest, was the perception of sharkiness. And because there are unscrupulous, dodgy. There are dodgy people. I haven't got my teeth in, mate. There are dodgy people in every single sector of every single industry. It's just music gets a bad rep because of the few that unfortunately, are preying on dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's so awful. But like, as a piece of advice to anyone who's kind of been engaged with those sorts of people, if they're asking for a load of money up front and you haven't even released a single, you've released one single, do not do it.
Yeah.
It's not. I can almost guarantee it will not bring you the returns you hope it might. And if they ever mention who they're connected with, in a kind of in framing it as we'll get you signed type thing, or we'll put you in front of industry, run.
Yes. Yes.
That's not. Don't go with them.
That should be the disclaimer that just comes with everything. At the top of their website, that should be the disclaimer.
That's it. If it's in there, if they put it in there, don't do it, because they're visibly preying on the emotional depth and kind of sincerity of where artists are coming from. It means everything to an artist to kind of be able to get their music to a wider audience, and for many still to ultimately sign a record deal. I mean, we can unpack that all day long, whether that's the right thing to do anymore. Probably not for the vast majority of artists. That doesn't matter though, because there's still very viable career paths and revenue streams and growth you can achieve. But so any kind of website that's preying on that or putting that front and center, that's just dodgy.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah. In terms of your attention, because you got these kind of, I suppose, I'm sure you got, you say you're working with your on your wife's project as well, and that's obviously going to be something that you're going to concentrate on and divide your attention into. Between the 3 projects that we've talked about, how do you manage to sort of spread your attention between them? Do you find one more demanding than the other? You know, whether that's the full-time job aspect of it being demanding of time, or, you know, even mental capacity of running your own business. How would you sort of describe that?
That's a great question, Joe. That is. I think I'm fortunate, and I can say this publicly because it's obvious, really, that my full-time role kind of has a symbiosis with my other music-orientated roles, in as much that I'm bringing my professional relationships into ICMP to facilitate, you know, the delivery of information to the students and alumni there. And likewise, anyone new that I'm meeting through ICMP is useful for not in a cold way, useful for me. They're useful, Joe. They're probably lovely as well. And I build friendships and stuff like that. But, you know, that the truth is that maybe as a professional function, they can aid and we can help them as well. So there's a real kind of symbiosis there. It is a full-time job. So, you know, I spend my time during a day there, so to speak. I say so to speak because obviously it's virtual now. So I don't think we'll ever go back to a fully face-to-face delivery method. In fact, I know we won't.
Times are changing.
Yeah, management is like, it's a cyclical thing. You know, if you're in campaign, of course, of releases, then, you know, there's going to be higher demands on attention and you know, requirement, which you can build in as much as possible because you know the release date, right? If you've planned it well, you know your releases, so you can kind of structure your time. I've actually found nothing more effective in creating efficiencies than having a family. I want to spend time with my children, so I can't almost guarantee that's a sweeping statement, but I know that how I deliver my work is probably stronger than ever, because, you know, my heart is wholeheartedly in helping my artists and clients develop and grow their success. So I think I'm very efficient in the way I've developed my working practice. I also, with a bit of experience, you have a real flavour of what your return on investment is in time. Time being the most valuable thing we actually have.
Yes.
Yeah. So, where in my early days of artist management, I would spend hours upon hours researching people and, you know, kind of sending speculative emails and this sort of stuff. I know that actually that returned very little for the amount of time I was putting in. And actually, it was much more sensible to grow your professional relationships and your professional network so that you can ask someone you have a relationship with to achieve the thing you might be wanting to achieve. Again, in a mutually beneficial way. So I think the way you work becomes more efficient. I definitely do work at night quite a lot. After I've played my kids and put them to bed and had all that kind of real downtime, which is healthy for your bloody mind anyway, because Christ, you do need space. You know, you need space from it. It freshens you up. Like, I understand people might want to wake up at 7 a.m. and work to 7 p.m. or beyond, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. or whatever. And do you know what? Do that. If you want to do that, do it in your 20s. It's cool. That's what you should be. Your 20s are for this. It's kind of what I did, really. It's all for experimenting and really pushing things and finding out what you don't want to do or you do want to do. Both important. But I think with a bit of maturity, whether that's mental or just physical, I don't know. I think you just have a better understanding of where the effective work is placed and the attention on that and how important that attention is.
From a personal perspective, having to divide attention between being a musician, working with other artists in, you know, whether that be a creative capacity or a sort of business capacity, and doing that and attempting to do that full time and to make that, you know, the sole kind of reason for my existence, which I think, you know, I think when you see it, when you I mean, you'll see it with the students, you know, they'll come in and they want this to be full time more often than not. Not always, but more often than not. And I think the one thing that I personally have come to find is the most crucial, important thing is structure. And
absolutely, right.
That is structure to the day from the moment that I get up and scheduling my day. There are going to be days where I don't have a lot on. There are going to be days where I've got too much on. But having structure and having consistency, when juggling a career that's bouncy, let's say, and you know, that never completely stable, it's so crucial. I've always understood the importance of sleep, and you know, even yesterday, just yesterday, I was watching a video with Jeff Bezos, and he was talking about the importance of sleep, and he gets 8 hours. Not if he's traveling, you know, there's the exceptions, but he will endeavor to get out 8 hours, and he is the wealthiest man on planet Earth currently. Elon Musk just got,
Oh, did he go back again? I know they're always fluctuating. Either way, they've got a few quid.
He's back on. So obviously, you know, obviously an incredibly demanding career, and his time is incredibly demanding of him. But yeah, he talks about the importance of sleep, and I could not agree more with you that it's crucial to get it, and absolutely. You feel more awake. I feel more enthusiastic about beginning my structured work day after I've had a good night's sleep. If I've got to bed late and needed to get up early at 5 o'clock, God forbid, I just don't function correctly, and I'll have a draggy day, and I won't be as effective. So I don't know if you find that, if you find that the same.
Well, I mean, yes. However, I have to caveat that I have 2 young kids, so that makes I have broken sleep at the moment, which is, I don't have a lot of it, but that's because of my current circumstance and climate. And would I change it? Absolutely not, because I've got 2 great kids, and I'm aware that at the moment my efficiency of working is probably down. Mm-hmm. My enthusiasm, I mean, it's still pretty high. I'm an enthusiastic kind of guy, but it's not as high as it was before I was getting a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. But I don't beat myself up about it. This is what people, I think, this is how you can degrade, well, one of the ways you can degrade mental health quite quickly is by that constant, engage that constant narrative of, oh, I'm not doing enough, or I'm demotivated. You know what I mean? Like, you have to think, often we don't, it's mental, often, literally, but often we don't take a moment to pause to realise and to understand that we are physical beings, and we are mental beings. And those 2 things need nurture. Yeah. Because if you cannot look after your body or your mind, then you are going to degrade. You can degrade with your mental health, you can degrade physically, you can degrade with every measure of what, you know, your productivity might be. So it's essential. And I also think another thing on what you were saying, Joe, about structure is what I think what we're not very good at as well. I mean, to-do lists, they are bloody important. Let's be honest, they are. Yeah. But also ticking off a to-do list, and at the end of the day or the week, reflecting on what you have achieved.
Yep.
And it's because, you know, that having that awareness of your productivity can actually help with all those other factors, like motivation and stuff like that. Because we're very good at telling ourselves, like, oh God, I've had a really, you know, I haven't been motivated today, I haven't got anything done. But you look at your to-do list, you've ticked 9 things off, and you're like, but you've achieved 9 things, tasks.
Yeah.
You don't need that narrative of I haven't achieved.
Yes.
So I think that, and also, mate, that like there's going back to looping this back to the first part of the conversation, like that doesn't tend to be entrepreneurial, the whole practicality of running business. That's back to being a creative business person and being effective as a business person, which I think is just as valuable.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, they tend to just drive.
Right.
But the most effective entrepreneurs often have a partner who does the practicality stuff.
That's right.
And achieves, like, gets the steps done to realize the vision. Again, generally, there's always anomalies and exceptions to this statement, but that's why I think the success is a beautiful marriage between the two, or three or four or five.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blend that we learn, I suppose, along the way.
Yeah. Excuse me. It is, mate. It is. Yeah. But no, structure. You're right. In a nutshell, structure and sleep is helpful. And if you can't sleep because you've got 2 young kids, then even more structure.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of the hours you have and the capacity you have in your mind.
Yeah.
And even during, like, if you break your day down, like I tend to like to do stuff from maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Of my stuff, because I know I can get a shit ton done because I'm fresh.
Yeah.
I feel fresh as a daisy. That's my, that's when I know that I can, I'm functioning.
Yeah.
You're interviewing me at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I've had 9 coffees to stay awake. I'm joking.
Well, next time we'll schedule it for 4 a.m. I'll stop you on.
I'll have the baby probably at that moment.
Yeah. They'll get involved. It's fine. Wicked. Obviously, we are in a unprecedented time, as everyone keeps saying. I wonder how many times that word has been used in the past 12 months. So with the virus, with COVID at the minute, the music industry has drastically, well, I won't say changed, because we know what's going to happen in the future, but it's certainly affected it drastically for the time being. So as a manager, but more important as an assessor of risk, and I think that's something that's probably more relatable to this question. As an assessor of risk, how have you been able to navigate this sort of climate at the minute? And do you think there's going to be positive change, negative change, or necessary change to come out of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's hard not to dwell on it too much because it's a big question. But I mean, I guess from an artist manager's point of view of our clients, it's actually been assessing each client on their individual needs and where they're on the career path. For instance, one of our artists, his build is massively around live, which I know, it can sound a cliche. Oh, right, you're building them, but we kind of proven it. Like we one of the early members of our team was a booking agent, and he was lined up to play about, I think it was about 20 tastemaker festivals in 2020, which have always been pulled and that. But he turned to creative, to creating. He's written like two and a half, well, probably more than that, about 3.5 albums worth of material, which is going to be incredibly exciting for when we come back, start and release music. Particularly if things progress as we hope. The live is starting to come, or will start to come back in the summer into autumn, and beyond. So, God, fingers crossing it for that. But if it does, then we suddenly have a great package of great music that is going to be leverageable for us, for that artist, when the kind of the circumstance allows. We have another artist who also is a writer producer, and their work is entirely appropriate for a virtual and digital swell, which is achieved. We've released three or four singles. God, I can't remember. During this pandemic, these unprecedented times. Sorry, let's use that word for a change, as you say. And he's achieved some great results, and suddenly we're talking to a few interesting potential partners for further releases. It's been fantastic.
Brilliant.
He hasn't got a live show developed yet, and good. I'm pleased he hasn't, because like we could put full attention into socials and virtual presence and that sort of nature. So from an artist manager point of view, it's been adapted, let's say. I think that's what's come through for me, and even from the ICMP. So how musicians and artists and writers and producers and whatnot have adapted, I found amazing. And I also think it's going to lead to some incredible music. I really do. Like, how can it not? How can it not? I think, I mean, you've seen big profit rises now in the majors, and they're starting to report it, and in Spotify in particular. So, you know, it's funny. It's reinforced the general model of streaming as if it needs to be reinforced, but it does. And also the globalization. I know Spotify have picked up another, I don't know, like I think about 15 markets just since the unprecedented time. I'm gonna have to use that as often as I can now. Unprecedented time. So we know that function of delivery is still engaging and connecting with the general populace, and they've increased their the people who are their subscribership with ridiculous numbers. Now, will that injection of revenue reflect in an adjustment of artist and writer rates? Let's hope so, because there's more pressure, always more pressure coming from lobbyists and that sort of thing, and high functioning groups of individuals who are continuing to push. I think that's an exciting bit like that, but an exciting, hopeful progression. Because I love Spotify. It's an amazing tool. It's weighted too far on one side at the moment, but their business model was always that. Their business model from day one, well, probably day 115, was to grow subscriptions. Yeah, that one, subscriberships. Let's use both of them. I don't even know what's correct. Subscribers, paying subscribers. And therefore, the business model becomes profitable, and hopefully the share to artists and writers adjusts accordingly. I also think the live streaming, I don't think is going anywhere. I think savvy industry folk are going to bolt that on to the live plot of their artists, because why? Particularly globally, why should someone in the UK wait for an artist who's particularly active in the live scene in the US to experience their US show in a live, high value manner? I personally think they'll continue that on a different tiered ticketing system.
Yeah,
because that person in the UK is still going to go and watch that artist when they come to the UK live. So why wouldn't you have that multifaceted and layered revenue stream where you can effectively leverage the same one person in a country twice? One with a high ticket price when it's in person. I'm not saying high ticket as an inflationary thing, but it just is, isn't it? If you go and see a established artist live, versus a cheaper ticket for the stream, for a live stream of it. Why would you go back? I don't, because I don't think where the old thinking is like, no, let's keep them, so you had to go and pay to see them live. Let's not saturate the ability to engage with a live performance. Well, I think that's gone. Why would you wait? I'd rather a £15 ticket, a £15 ticket live and a £5 streaming ticket, and then you up the kind of A-list, and you get £150 live ticket and a £30 stream ticket. I think people will pay it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely integrate it. Don't there's no need to make the switch from one to the other. People are always going to want the live experience without question.
Yeah.
But why not add on, some more exclusivity?
Yeah, I agree. You think of how this can become more expansive, like in the live stream. Like I think, God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I'm going to say it, but like the development of in-play betting, horrible industry. But go with me on this, Joe. I'm not suggesting you should gamble on anything, but as technology, imagine if you're streaming an artist and you can suddenly click and buy a piece of merch that will be delivered to you. Like it's suddenly those methods of delivery of an experience to a fan that the teams can legitimately increased revenue potential through those sorts of adverts or those sorts of functionality, why wouldn't you? It is not taking the piss out of the fan. If you're a fan of an artist, you want to get involved. You want to support them. You know what I mean? So I just think there's really interesting. You get your brother involved, Joe, the old technology side of things. But you know, why wouldn't that progress into that? I mean, that's what I'd be. Well, I know some people are, but that's what I'd be doing for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's a very substantial argument for sort of, and I don't mean this. I know it's got sort of some people give it negative connotations, but gamification of.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right.
As long as it's done honestly, as long as it's done transparently. There's nothing wrong with transparent gamification. It's, you know, we're not looking to enforce dark patterns or anything like this with what we do. We couldn't get away with that.
Exactly that, Joe. And that is the point. That's the point. The market in which we operate of music listeners and fans, you know, like it's quite hard to create a mechanism where you're taking advantage. Like I mean, again, that gambling, it's a terrible moralistic example to make, but the gambling thing's awful because you are effectively preying on quite inherently damaged people. Like you touch the addicts, and it's awful. It's terrible. It is terrible. I can't see it ever being comparable to if you're effectively kind of advertising in play, game in play type thing to a fan.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm naive, but I think that's going to be a development.
Absolutely.
Another thing that's come up, I know that a lot of companies have started trying to buy up masters and things of this nature. So there's been a lot of, arguably the bigger players, swallowing up new catalogs and things like that. And I actually think it's going to reinforce the knowledge of the independent sector, hopefully, of the importance of owning your rights.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, that's fundamentally in perpetuity. You could own your rights. And like people like AWell, a few years ago, really kind of started to push the whole licensing of records. So they do if you do a different deal, but generally they don't own masters, but they can license them and give you some uplift in money to spend in marketing. And there are other companies obviously that are doing this now, so and expanding on that model, and also the narrative around, you know, the number of artists that were completely taken a piss off with regards to companies and corporations owning their rights in an unfair manner. I mean, it's like, to a certain extent, it's become part of the public discord and narrative. So, like, there's awareness of it. So, one, I don't think music companies can get away with it like they used to. Hopefully they wouldn't. Well, hopefully they would want to. We know some that would. But also, I think artists are becoming more and more savvy. Really are, with regards to, like, you know, what leverageable assets do you own? Your rights. Hold them as long as you, or hold them and leverage them to the right deal for the right amount of money. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but know their worth. I think I think that's been a development. It feels like it's becoming more of a development of knowledge generally among the independent sector. I think
so. Yeah, I think so. I don't think people are succumbing to the temptation of, you know, any old deal as much anymore. I think I can see that firsthand, actually. You know, people are becoming a little bit more, you know, savvy, a bit more knowledgeable, and knowing that they are the talent and that they should be respected as that. Respected as so.
Absolutely. It's funny how kind of the bit more the knowledge of business empowers. It's not funny, it's obvious. The more you know about the business, the more you're empowered as a creator within that business. I mean, that is it. The songwriters and the artists, they're creating the assets effectively. It's their you know, it's their intellectual property. That's huge.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like, you think another business where intellectual property is protected by well, let's say patents,
Yeah.
however you want to pronounce it. Look, it's a very well travelled law-based industry, isn't it? It's
Yes.
like, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Usually.
a no-brainer. You get intellectual property, you patent it, and it's not as understood. It's not as, I don't think it's as kind of it's not articulated. Well, I'm doing a great job of it. It's not articulated particularly well to artists that your songs are your intellectual property. And if it was a bloody invention for the next, you know, iteration of Hoover or vacuum cleaner, not to brand the whole thing, then you would get a patent, because that would protect your intellectual property for you to leverage it as you see fit to try to create a revenue.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yes.
Mostly forever.
So over many years of experience, we've established you've witnessed a lot of change through people, through the industry itself, through developments of how to release music, how to create it, blah 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 blah, all sorts from every end of the scope. In your opinion, now, what's the one thing that musicians, might be a tough one, so one things that musicians should prioritize if they want to succeed in the music industry, whether that be in terms of their perception of success or actually, let's say, more of a general perception of success?
Yeah, their music.
Yeah.
And it's almost amazing that I feel I have to say that. But again, quite a telling example is the number of meetings. This isn't a criticism. This, I think, is indicative of this whole previous conversation about the need for information, as we kind of spoke about earlier. The number of conversations I have where a student or an artist or a producer or whatever will come and play me one track, one song, and they want to talk about how to release it. I'm not, what's great song, brilliant. What's single 2 and 3 and 4? Maybe I haven't written it yet. You're not ready. You're miles off ready, because absolutely the market now, or maybe the industry players that communicate music to the market, Spotify, let's use that one, is a single, for emerging artists in particular, is a single driven framework. Like that, you know, even radio, like you can't really, again, for emerging artists, I hasten to add, this is contextual to emerging artists, you can't pitch an EP as a whole to Spotify. Not really. You can't pitch an EP to radio, generally. You can't, well, you can pitch an EP to sync and music supervisors, but, you know, they're not going to engage with your body of work if you're an unknown. This is from an artist's perspective. So we know single by single is the way to go, because it gives you multiple touch points with the industry players, the DSPs, the radio, all that kind of stuff, press, blogs, all that kind of thing, to grow your story. Each single gives you an opportunity to grow your story, to bring in more listeners, to eventually convert to fans. And that's the point, eventually convert to fans. Building a fan, and Spotify talk about it, it's not instant. It's very, very rare that you get an instant fan of one song.
Yes, yeah.
So the reason you need I believe you should have a body of work that you spent time to experiment. Don't just write 5 songs and that's your body of work. I'm done. No. Like right. Explore, experiment, discover where your sonic identity, where your artistic vision is going to start, how you communicate. Because once you're releasing these singles, the singles build discoverability. The body of work suggests an artistic proposition. And the listener only becomes a fan when there is an artistic proposition. Who is this artist? And your music is the main communicator of who you are as an artist. Socials are a communicator of personality, character, influence, inspiration, all of those things are content driven. But your music is who you tell listeners, how you tell listeners who you are as an artist. And it's massively underplayed. Is that it's not talked about enough. that although the mechanism of Spotify, the instantaneousness of singles, has been an evolution, some might say a devolution, but I think evolution of music. The psychology of listeners hasn't changed all that much.
Yeah.
Like, they become a fan of an artist. They don't become a fan of a song. If you become a fan of a song, you might have a Gangnam Style, like a major hit, but there's not much transition to followers of fans of the artist. No disrespect at all, but that was designed that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even more so, Joe, when you think about the communicating social media, the various platforms of communicating your art, it's like one song doesn't cut it. You have to be able to have a momentum, have a timely plan of how you're going to introduce your art to the world, and it's bit by bit, song by song, ultimately resulting in the initial picture, which evolves over time. But that's a different podcast, probably.
Very well said. Finally, mate. Finally, if there was one piece of advice you could give your 20-year-old self going into the music business, what would it be?
Don't worry.
Yeah.
How interesting with I was gonna say with age, because that's quite, I think it can be quite patronizing, condescending, but with experience, you suddenly realize that I think I've almost solved every problem I've ever had. And when I was in my 20s and had problems, I was shitting my pants.
And
I was worried and I was frantic. And yet I found a solution for pretty much every one of them. I don't mean that arrogantly. I just think that's probably the story for most people, actually, or lots of people. And so nowadays, I know issues will come up, problems will arise. And if they're not, again, it's probably because you're not trying enough stuff or doing enough things, or, trying to experiment. But you'll solve it. As long as you kind of, you continue the exploration and you reach out to people or yourself, because we're very resourceful beings that we often forget or underplay, you'll find a solution.
Yeah.
So chill out, don't worry. Otherwise you lose your hair, Joe.
I'm going that way.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you could find some value in the conversation. If you're a musical artist looking for some experienced guidance on how to further your career and would like to know what Point Break Entertainment could do to help, follow the links in the description below and feel free to reach out to us at any time.